Moving on to the next game now was obviously the big one for us, England Scotland. Disappointed with England's performance. What do we think about
I
I,
think
I don't think disappointing is the right word to use. I just think
mm,
No, I think it
it was a
is.
I think it was a few moments in the game which let England down. I think that's the only thing.
But you can't
I think
really
overall
blame.
I
You
think
overall
can't have those
performance.
moments. That's the problem.
Jack. You know
Like,
what I think it is? Oh, sorry, you go.
go on. No, I was just gonna say, like, I know those moments happen, but it seems like they happen far too often. Like the Van der Merwe try was an outstanding try, but it's like 4 or 5 missed
Not
tackles. It's
not an
just not good
international
enough.
level. Not an
It's not
international
good enough.
level. I think look like in the first half, like the back line, I don't look at any of the backline players and blame them for that loss. Farrell and Smith, obviously we made a video last week saying if it worked, and it worked on the weekend. So I don't know why people are still pointing fingers at the attack
Mm.
and saying, "Oh yeah, Farrell Smith." This it's not Farrell Smith is not the problem. The pack is the problem for England. They can't impose themselves at all, and they were completely outplayed. I'm pretty sure the only scrum penalty England got was when Dan Cole got on at the
that?
end,
It was late on in the game, wasn't it? I think
late on in the
Yeah,
game.
yeah,
late on in the game. Yeah.
yeah.
And
I'm a big fan of Dan Cole there. For me, I think the main problem for England, and it's been a problem for a couple of seasons now, is just when they get into the 22. It's almost like the game just slows down. There's not as much urgency, but they just need to sort out. They need to take control and score when they get opportunities because Scotland were clinical. Like if you
mm,
look at the territory, England dominated and Scotland had a few chances and they just
Scotland scored 2 tries out of just nothing. It seemed like it was just moments of magic, whereas like they're better than us almost.
It was all credit to Scotland, but how good was Ben White?
yeah. Unreal. Ben White,
Mm.
yeah, one of their best players on the pitch. I think the biggest impact he had was that pass he threw across to Tui Pilotu for the first try. I
yeah,
Mm.
saw something about it, 28 miles an hour. It was about 20 meters, skips the forward post, skips to 10, straight to the 12. That opens up so much better, especially against a team like England when they're on their own line, they defend with a sweeper behind the ruck. So if you can throw that pass that wide, then there's always that in behind.
it's
What
interesting.
was going on with Farrell's kicking? Sorry, Tally. What was going on with Farrell's kicking? I was like for goal, like I was
Uncharacteristic.
just yeah.
He
It
missed.
was
He
a bit
left
weird.
4 points out there, didn't he? It's like four, 5 points.
It was the first 2 kicks, wasn't it? The
Mm.
Yeah.
conversions were done.
I think speaking on Farrell like, and looking at centers, it was quite interesting because last week we were talking about like what the absence of Chris Harris could do in terms of benefiting England, but Hugh Jones in that center partnership was just ridiculous, and Scotland were just able to really impose themselves, and yeah, Joe Marchant really wasn't able to get into the game as much as like England fans would have perhaps have liked him to.
Yeah,
Mm.
Honestly, I think Joe Marchant is a great player, but
Mm.
he does not work if you're going with Smith and Farrell. If you're going with Smith and Farrell,
No.
you need someone with more punch that will get you over the gain line a bit more. Someone like Ollie Lawrence, Manu Tuolangi. But Joe Marchant would definitely work with two out and out centres. But if you're going to go with Farrell in the centres, you
If
need
you
some.
put Slade in at centre with him, I feel like that's the combo that would work well.
I, and I completely agree. I feel like whilst Farrell and Smith did work, you sort of almost need that imposing figure at 12 where the game at times does get a bit stale. So someone to punch through holes and almost provide the Temba more time to make a good clearance kick. Because whilst Farrell is good at rugby, he can't do that as a 12. He's as I've said before, like he's a 10 playing 12. So it comes back again to that Farrell Smith debate. If you are to start one, do you start Farrell? Do you start Smith? And who do you play on the centers? That's another question.
yeah.
Well, one thing I thought was quite interesting about England's attack was I saw Smith having to carry quite a lot by himself.
Mm.
I'm not sure. Like I have to look back at the reasons why, but I think it's just because of the lack of options he had outside of him. Sometimes he just found himself having to.
Yeah. It was that play in the second half, I think, where it was like a 2-on-2, I think.
Yeah.
And he had the ball and he like goose stepped out and then he got just pushed into touch. But it just seems like he had nobody around him for him to do anything. It's like
Yeah.
he's
Yeah,
lost.
it's like a lack of
I'd say
creativity.
that was his only mistake in the game, really. Other than that, I can't see where he put a foot wrong. Like he
No,
put a
I'm not like
few.
slating him for it. I'm just saying like he had nothing around him. It was like he was trying to play school rugby and just try and skip past everyone, but
Mm.
it
I
doesn't
Mm.
think there's a
happen.
bit. Should we cut right to it and say about the final try for Scotland? I think that was a bit where most England fans their hearts sank. I think a lot of like Howard Duhan van der Merwe stepped in, and Marcus Smith missed that
But is
tackle.
it
But what do
Smith?
you guys
I
think?
wouldn't.
I would personally say if Smith makes that tackle, Van der Merwe doesn't score. But does Van should Scotland have got into that position in the first place? You can't blame Smith for being in that position. I
Yeah.
do say,
Yeah.
however, it's a poor defensive effort from Smith, and defense is something Smith needs to work on. You know, in one-on-one situations, if you're looking at for example, the Arenza trial where he's had time and he's in a set position and he fails to even get a hand on Arenza, that's probably one of Smith's biggest shortcomings, I feel like.
If you look at
Go
the
on,
build
wait.
of the Scotland try, it was just, Finn Russell stepped up, gave two really nice passes, and then it's almost similar to when last year, when we played Scotland, Finn Russell puts in that crossfield, and then suddenly you just have the defense is just scrambling. No one's in their right place. You had Mako Vunipola defending the 13 channel. Max Malins feels like he has to fly out the line. Simple hands.
Yeah.
Van der Merwe's in loads of space. Like, I just feel like there's no once that first break is made, England are just very slow to get it back into their defensive structure.
I would add that Smith did the right thing and forced Van der Merwe to step in. I think the cover defense should have been like last resort, and they didn't make the tackle.
I don't think Freddie Stewart defensively was outstanding either. I mean, everyone's happily stating Smith, but I don't think Freddie Stewart was outstanding in defence either, to be honest.
Even on the first Van der Merwe try, I think it was Malins and Stewart that missed the tackle.
And Don Brandt.
And Don Brandt as well. Malins, as per usual, is always smiling all the time. It's quite funny when you watch the replay back, he's always smiling. But yes, Stewart, apart from the bump in the first half, was really unable to, and I'm not saying it's his fault, but he wasn't able to get into the game at all on Saturday, and Scotland did a good job of keeping him out.
I think if you look back, there were a couple of times, and this is maybe one thing about the Farrell at 12 situation that's a problem. There were a couple of times where Farrell was caught out of position defensively. For the first build up to the first try, he steps in, and then obviously for the Van der Merwe try on the kick chase, he's caught on the wrong side of one of the screening forwards, and it's something that an experienced 12 that they don't make that error. But
yeah, 100%.
The question is whether he has enough time to learn these little things. And defensive 12.
He's only gonna get better, I feel like. But in a World Cup year, do you really want to be like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's a World Cup year. That's the biggest option. It's not like England don't have enough time to be rebuilding. They need the best players available, and yeah, that's what I think.